Hello, Potomac Crossing Ward. This is the LDS Come Follow Me Lesson 45 Ether 6 through 11. And going to just talk briefly in general about some of the stuff happening in Ether chapter 6 through 11. We see in chapter 6, this is when the Jaredites travel across the Great Water over to the Promised Land, and they arrive in the promised land and do well, and the populations, the families grow. And then as the two patriarchs, Jared and the brother of Jared, are getting old, they recognize that they're at the end of their mortal life. So they gather up the families and count everybody, the children and grandchildren, and say, what do you guys want us to do? And then the people are like, hey, we want you to appoint a king. The brother of Jared says, no, this will lead to captivity. But Jared says, go ahead and do it. So this again cements Jared as the political leader or ruler, while the brother of Jared was obviously the spiritual leader. Jared was the political leader. So Jared overrides the brother of Jared, and they go ahead and appoint a king. They pick all of the sons of the brother of Jared, all of whom refuse. So then they pick all of the sons of Jared, all of whom refuse, down to the last son, Orahah. And we know from earlier in the chapter, in verse 14, Orahah was likely the youngest son, because we assume the names are given in birth order. And if that's the case, then Orahah is the youngest son. So if you think about it for a moment, if all of the sons of Jared, the brother of Jared, refuse, and then all of the sons of Jared refuse, and then you get down to the last son to pick from, he basically knows that all of the other guys that he would be competing for the monarchy have been offered and rejected it, and he's the last one. So that defeats any kind of social context of competing for the monarchy, because the position that Orahah takes on is a position of humility, because all of the other older brothers have rejected it. They don't want it. So that it's not like you have to worry about another brother coming to fight you and usurp the kingdom. They're just not interested in it. So he assumes a position of power, but it's also a position of humility. But he does well as a king. He rules in righteousness, and they continue to do well until the great grandchildren, and then things go bad. And then we see this pattern continue through all of these chapters. The people swing back and forth between righteousness and wickedness. Sometimes they're doing well, and sometimes they're doing badly. And then Moroni will take time out to discuss particular particular events, but by and large, he's rocketing through their history very quickly. So we see that with chapter 8. We have the introduction of secret combinations. So Moroni takes quite a bit of time there to talk about the secret combination that gets built up, and he talks about how horrible it is. It's a bad thing, and then this is another one of his parenthetical statements, is in one of his interludes in chapter 6, verses 20 through 26. He's like, this is bad stuff. Don't do this. And then he warns the Gentiles. He's like, oh, you Gentiles, it's wisdom in God that these things should be shown unto you. So he's saying, look, here's a warning of how bad this situation is. Don't allow this kind of thing among you. And then it continues. Kingdoms pass back and forth. There's lots of war and conflict, people killing each other. And you have times where they're doing good and they get blessed very well, and then times where things are bad and they get punished with drought and snakes and poisonous serpents and so forth. So in this case, it's clear that this is a sort of covenant theology, right? You do good, you're blessed. You do bad, you get punished. And this is something we see in the Old Testament as well with the Israelites, right? Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28. Now, the difference with the Israelite covenant theology that we see in Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28 is there the Lord is punishing them to get them to repent and return to Him, and there's never the threat of annihilation because of the promise made to Abraham. Here, the threat of annihilation is very real. when the prophets say we're going to all get wiped out, they mean it, because the Lord has not made any kind of promise about them not being wiped out or preserving any seed. So here's the difference. There's the promise of the, do the right thing and you'll be blessed, do the wrong thing and you'll be cursed. The difference is with the Israelite promise in the covenant theology, there's always this, I'm preserving the righteous out from among you and not wiping you out entirely. And that is absent from the Jaredite account as you go through this. There's the threats of annihilation, which are very real and end up being the end of the book. So I mean that's pretty much it. And I mean you'll notice that Moroni spends time cherry picking the history. Like he spends a lot of time on the establishment of the secret combination, but he also spends a lot of time talking about this one really good king named Lib. So while Moroni is rocketing through the history, he'll cherry pick certain events and spend some more time on it and hold this up as an example of something either exceptionally good or exceptionally bad. And then he just kind of tears through all of this history until he gets down to chapter 12. And he spends the bulk of the time of the book of Ether up front with the brother of Jared, and then at the end with with Ether and Coriantumr. So there's 27 generations in between that get packed into 5 chapters. And then, Moroni just plows through them very quickly. I mean, I wish we had more detail, right? Of what's going on. But Moroni's just not interested in any of that. He's like, here's the theological breakdown of what's going on there. And he just blasts through 27 generations. So, yeah. So next week we'll do the end of it with the book of Ether 12 through 15. And then that's it for the book of Ether. Yeah, 12 through 15. All right.